Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Vibecode Meetup. I didn't expect this many people. I'm happy to see this many people. It's cool. I'm wondering if you all staying for a longer time because then we can make this maybe a recurring thing. I think vibecoding is something. I'll talk to the camera as well. I think vibecoding is something that goes slowly and you get into it and you learn on the way. So if we can make this a recurring thing, great, then we can all learn and grow. But for today, since we didn't really know what the level of the participants are, we want to keep it very general. And I created a bit of a panel, a little discussion where I think we will touch on all the subjects that new people, but also more experienced people will find interesting. And then moving forward, we can see what's the level of everyone, and we can think more of, okay, maybe we can code together, maybe we can share ideas, maybe we can do other things. But for today, as a first one, we're going to do a little 30-minute discussion. We'll also feel free to raise your hands if you have questions or if you want to argue with what we say. I'm happy to argue as well. I see in the WhatsApp group that there's a bunch of people that are happy to say bad things about vibe coding, so feel free to do that. We're happy to share the positive side here. So yeah, but let's get started. First, I think let's introduce our guests for today and what they have to do with vibe coding or how long they've been vibe coding. Dan, maybe you can start because you told me you've been using Cursor since before Cursor was cool. Can you share a bit more about Cursor, how long you've been using it, and how is vibe coding for you? What's the journey like?
So, hi all, I'm Dr. Dan and I've been vibe coding for a year. It sounds like I'm sort of a recovering addict or something. Uh, I discovered Cursor in May last year and that was it. I never went back. I am trying as hard as I can not to ever write a single line of code again. That's the plan. And we can talk about how I'm using it later, but I'm trying to evolve from a coder to a PM essentially. So what I do now is I try to figure out what the product should do, how it should look like, what the user stories look like, etc. And that's what I give to the software, whatever it is.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben. I have the opposite journey. I was a product manager at Amazon for 6 years, and then a couple years ago was at a startup. Startup was failing, and I wanted to build my own product, so I found something called Bubble. Bubble is a no-code tool. And I built a couple products there, got some adoption, and then have since migrated both of my products over to Cursor, like rebuilt them using Cursor in the last 6 months. So PM to kind of now engineer, but don't know how to code. Going at it from that route.
Hello everyone, my name is Luca, and I think I summarize vibe coding as something like I've always felt like an artist in the tech space, but an artist without a paintbrush. And as soon as I started using vibe coding for the first time, it felt like I could bring to life the ideas I've had on my own without needing 10 people, some in design, some in tech, to actually help me to do it. So that's how I'd summarize what vibe coding means to me.
I got the fork myself.
Nice.
Hey, my name is Rick. I have a background as a project manager in product development, so kind of a bit of the same journey there. I kind of know what it takes to build apps, but I've never touched a line of code myself. So every time I had an idea, it's very challenging to like go find developers, and you gotta have a budget, and you gotta have time, and all of that stuff. But vibe coding excites me now because you can go from idea to prototype super fast. You don't need to write any line of code, and you can skip that whole having to find a developer and having to find a budget to create a prototype and validate your idea, basically. And that's why I love vibe coding. I'm just getting started to it, but it's fun, and you learn every day, and that's what I like about it. And that's maybe also my next question for the panel. What's the things in vibe coding that excite you most, or how did you roll into it? What did you create, like the first things that you said, like, wow, I didn't know I was capable of doing this thanks to AI now? Luca? Dan?
I go first or you go first? Very quickly, like last January was when I first tried to actually build something. I think I used Replit. I've also switched to Cursor now. And it was because I couldn't find a plugin on WordPress, which I hate using WordPress now. I don't recommend using it anymore. But I couldn't find a plugin on WordPress that could put the revenue from my Stripe account public for people who are visiting my website to see. So I built a tool which essentially connects to my Stripe account and publicly displays how many sales the website was making. So it was literally like I was looking for my own solution, couldn't find anyone who made it, so I made it for myself.
And how many lines of code did you write yourself for that?
Nothing, no. No. I just spoke to it, I just told it like, hey, this is what I want to build. And then it guides you, so you are almost its tool too, because there's certain things that it needs you to do for it to reach its goal. So it will tell you, give me the API key of Stripe, and then you tell it, but how do I find it? And it will tell you, go over here, and then go over there. So as much as it's a tool for you, you are also a tool for it. So it's like quite strange.
Yeah, for me, I had my 2 products, and then earlier this year, I was like, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to build my 3rd product, but I'm not going to build it on Bubble because Bubble has like serious limitations. Bubble is similar to Webflow or Flutterflow, like one of these no-code tools. And it's just very slow. It's built on like an old framework, and there's just layers on top of layers that just make it feel clunky. So I started building an app, was like 2.5 months in. It was a really complex app. And then one night I just couldn't sleep, and I was like, wait a second, why don't I rebuild the apps that I already have that are making money? Why don't I rebuild those onto Cursor, like using Cursor? And I've since done them, and they work so much better. My conversion rates are up like 30% since that change, because like Luca said, right? I have that paintbrush now, and I can add crazy features that I really could not envision. One person could not envision before. So that was my first real product, was rebuilding. It's not a crazy complicated product. It's an AI cover letter generator. But if you search on Google AI cover letter, my product just kind of comes up on Google. So.
Amazing, congrats. The first thing I tried with Cursor was I was building a very specific version of Perplexity for biomedical researchers. I was trying to automate systematic literature reviews. Now, the front end was always the pain, right? How do you make the interactions? Yes, I can build a backend, sure, but clicks and things. So I found a repo that had already done most of the job, but I don't know any TypeScript. And it turns out I don't need to. Turns out I could just load the whole thing in Cursor and go like, I want to change this so that this happens. Where is the call? Like all these like Vercel things are very confusing. Where is the actual call to the backend? Oh, it's here. Oh, excellent. Can you go to the other side of the repo and just add that as a, like a REST API endpoint that does this, this, and that? Sure. Now, oh, hold on a minute. There's some data being lost. Oh, I see that it's being percolated through this, through this, through this, through this, and this is the problem. It would understand the repo for me. So that was the biggest aha moment for me, was that I don't need to understand code bases anymore because it does it for me.
Yeah.
Coolest
I think you missed a question. Maybe I want to quickly ask a question to the audience first, and then we'll do a quick intro of you. But I totally forgot about asking, but like I want to know who here has a software development background. Can you raise your hand? Okay, and there's like half the crowd. And who here has ever tried to Vibecode something? Okay, that's 70% of the crowd or more. Nice. Okay, that's just a quick one. Here's Zolt, right?
Yes.
I met Zolt in Bali, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and he told me he had an app. He built an app or multiple apps with millions of downloads. I think he was a Vibecoder before Vibecoder was cool. Maybe even 3 years before Vibecoding was cool. So maybe a quick introduction of you as well.
Hello, my name is Salt, like salt and pepper. I'm from Hungary, and I've been a developer for 18 years. And I built mobile apps. I had like 8 years of trying different projects, like 25 different things, robots, website. Nothing really worked. But 5 years ago, I started mobile apps. And accidentally, I released 3 successful mobile apps. If you have Android, and if you search for video stabilizer, I might come up at the first one. Also video to photo. If you search on Android, I will come up as the first one. And I have like 6 different apps with more than 1 million downloads, and in total more than 22 million downloads around the 5 years. And the biggest step is photo enhancer. We were the third photo enhancer in the store back when GPT wasn't even released. We catch the wave, and the wave, we were riding the wave. So yeah, that's a short introduction. And I've been vibe coding ever since GPT-3 beta came out. So it's
How long ago is that?
like 3 years, three
Oh,
years
okay.
ago. So it has been a long journey, and I have 3 programmer employees, and all of them have a Cloud Code and Cursor subscription. So we all vibe code, so they don't go for a week and tell me that they are done, and they are done in 2 hours in reality. So it's in the team. And anybody who wants to hire a developer, just make sure that they understand, that you understand, that you know that they're not gonna fool you. So yeah, because these days my friends are telling me like, hey, I use Cursor so I can go for have lunches for 3-4 hours because my employee doesn't know that I don't work anymore. So it's yeah, pretty cool to know about this and to know how fast you can release stuff. So the question was about Cursor.
I'm going to ask another question.
Okay, let's do it.
We mentioned a lot of different tools and things. Like I've heard Replit, I've heard Claude Code, I've heard Cursor, I have many others. But maybe it's easy since we have a lot of different skill sets here on the stage as well. I would love to hear what's the different AI workflows that you guys use to go from idea to app. I'll get started. I first brainstorm and I use either Claude or Grok for like brainstorming my ideas back and forth, and then get a good context of like what do I want to build, and then I go to Bolt to create the wireframes or the prototype. And then once I have something that looks like how I want it to look like, then I can move it to Cursor, and there I continue building the backend. And then through this discussion I do with Grok or Claude, I also create like 7 different documents, which are like the user journeys, which are the user flows, like all the different things that the AI should know about to stay within its boundaries. And then I feel like Cursor is a great place to then execute these things. But still, it's a challenge to sort out this backend, especially since I never wrote a line of code myself. But that's basically the flow. I go from brainstorming with one AI to creating wireframes to then building the whole platform. How about, I think you have a bit of the same. You use Replit, right?
I mean, I've used Replit, but no, I think I'm really disorganized compared to like. But what I'm interested as well is like, especially because there's a lot of software people here, is like how do you hire a good vibe coder? Like how do you judge, like to hire someone or to work with someone who is very good at that? Like that's for me is still a big question. But to answer your question, I just go into starting understanding what is my basic MVP, asking Cursor to build my basic MVP, and then I start adding more and more on top of that. But then when I look at my code base that I have now, it's like a complete mess. I mean, I don't think I'm not a technical person, so I don't even know how to clean it up. So these are my questions, really.
I have a few answers for that. So first of all, you ask them honestly, like how much you use AI in your development life. And some people will tell, yeah, I use ChatGPT, I copy paste. That's not the real thing. So if they say I use Cursor and how many times they prompt it, and then if they use Cloud Code, I love them forever. So it's that's one. Like be honest and maybe just ask them how they use it. Just they don't bullshit you. So yeah.
What's your workflow?
So the workflow about the cleaning up the process as well. First planning as well. Then I use v0.dev. I don't know how many of you heard about v0.dev.
Yeah.
So it's like same like Replit, like Lovable. It's a product of Vercel, and it's subjectively it creates the best design websites. It's really good in Next.js, which is the most popular website building technology, and it creates really beautiful designs. Almost all the time I use it, and then I do not give logic to it. So before that, I plan. At the plan, I need to remove all the unnecessary features because AI will start planning you all types of stuff that you don't need, like light mode, dark mode, like stuff like that. It's MVP. Really need to highlight that it's minimal viable product. It needs to work first. It needs to prove something. Then only then you can get complex enough. But you don't need to. You need to test your product first. So really, like simplify, MVP. Always repeat these keywords so the AI doesn't go and create the full complex banking app for you that's super secure and stuff like rate limitations. Like who needs that? Like you need to solve a problem first.
I made that mistake. Yeah.
So please try to read the plan and see if it concentrates on the problem to solve something. That's step number one. Step number two, because the V0 is also an AI agent, I usually tell it to break it down into 6-7 different prompts that I can feed into V0. So the second step, I create the prompts for V0. So then I have like 6-7 different prompts that I can copy paste to V0. V0 does its job, and I see the result. If I like it, then I go forward to the next one.
Are those 7 different prompts all to get to one project, or are those 7 different prompts to see, like, make them all, and I pick the best of the 7 creations?
To finish the one project,
Okay.
user interface.
Yes, okay.
Important, you do not want to attach database authentication, logic, anything that's any more than the design. You want to make sure that the design looks good, and then you build on top of it. So first design. The key point here, the more complexity you give to AI, the dumber it becomes, the more confused it becomes. So it's important to clean up the code. I'm going to get to that point as well. So we are at the point when we have a beautiful design, we are happy with it. Then you can either continue in V0, which I would highly recommend it, because V0 tends to destroy projects. So I would download it and continue it in Cursor. So that's the point when you download and do the programming. Then you, as a non-programmer, you might need to install some packages, some stuff. It might become scary, but it's not that scary. Like you just do it once and then you know it. So you install Node.js and some libraries, you're done. And then you start coding.
And there you could also say to the Cursor agent, hey, install this for me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cursor has access to your terminal. So it can install stuff for you. So you don't even need to really know like how to install Node.js. You have the @web, which searches the web. So you can tell Cursor to search the web how to install this and then run it. So it searches the web and installs it and your job done. So that's one of the most beautiful things. And back to the clean up the code, I have one big finding to write scripts with AI to check the health of your code. Because AI doesn't know your code. It pretends that it knows it. No, it reads it. It kind of knows it, but the truthful thing are scripts to detect the health of your code. What do I mean? The file size. Like you do not want to let files to grow more than 200 lines. If it's more than 200 lines, Cursor usually reads 100 lines or 50 lines. It doesn't understand gigantic God mode files. So you need to make sure that you have scripts to make sure that the files are not so long, so they are unhandleable by AI. That's one. Second, unused imports. Like imports, it's a technical term, but in code, like you import stuff like one section uses the other one, so they depend on each other. But as soon as you vibe code, sometimes you leave behind some garbage, and that the AI doesn't know that it's garbage unless you show the AI that, hey, yeah, you left there something, some garbage, nothing uses it. Clean it up.
How do I know as an untechnical person that something is garbage, though?
The script will know.
Okay.
There are scripts to find unused imports. So it's really important for you to keep the health of your code sane. because like it's same. Like if your room is not organized well, you cannot really know well like how to build on top of. So.
I have a question. Don't you think that it can be good for people starting not to learn how to code, but learn these type of things in order so they can accelerate their journey as a vibe coder? Like basic architecture in software, what does mean like announce in use import or this kind of stuff? Because I think that if you don't do these things, you can mess up a lot of stuff.
Yes, I would highly recommend you to learn the key words of these, like imports, like how do you talk with it. Like I'm not saying that you need to have a software engineering degree to start this, but at least like few days, few weeks to get comfortable with how to name certain things, what you need. So scripts, the health of your code, building your code, like all of this might sound scary, but to talk like to vibe code, actually you need to talk. Like even if like there will be a vibe coder for doctors, you would still need to name the actual part of the human body. You cannot say like, oh, it hurts on or here. Like you need to specify it, and the more specific you are, the more better for you. So yes, learning it is really important at the beginning, so that doesn't mess you up.
You mentioned the importance of limitation. So cursor is only checking the first 100 lines. How's your experience with the other?
So Cursor, you pay $20 per month for Cursor, which like if you, how many of you used API keys, AI with API keys? You fast find out that $20 a month is not possible. So Cursor, what does it do? It cuts down the context. It does sneaky stuff there behind just to make sure that they are still profitable. So Claude Code, on the other hand, it doesn't do this. So I ever since I use Claude Code is day and night. So I would highly recommend Claude Code. Is more expensive. Like if you use the API key, it's way more expensive. But if you subscribe to the Claude Code Max, you get 225 requests every 5 hours. I'm subscribed to it, and 6 of us in the team in my companies are subscribed to it, and it's super, super amazing how it's done. Like you give a task, and it really reads all the lines of the files, all the 1,000 lines. If it's super big, it shouldn't, but it still reads it. And
it's not true, actually, because also all these softwares showing you how many lines they read, and many times I also always need to tell to Cloud, hey, read the whole file.
Claude Code, though, are you running Claude Code in Cursor? It's an
But there's the thing. I think it's with all the CLIs also. So sometimes they read the whole files, but sometimes not. So you need to pay attention. It's just skipping all the time.
but compared Cursor to Claude Code, Cursor doesn't read that much.
You can also tell to Cursor to read the whole file. It's just like it does not do automatically.
Okay, so in your opinion, do you think Cursor or Claude Code is better?
I'm not saying is it a debate, you know.
No, like if you need to choose between the two, which one you choose?
Of course, Cloud Code.
Okay, Cloud Code. So Cloud Code, in my opinion, and other people in the team opinion, it's way better. It thinks faster, thinks deeper, and it just solves the problem. And if Cloud Code still doesn't read the files and still cannot solve it, there's a joker. I don't know how many of you did OpenAI deep research O3 connected to GitHub. How many of you tried this before? Okay.
because you told me to.
Okay, you tried it? Did it work?
You told me to. Yeah.
Okay, happy customer. So, there's a trick. Since like a month ago, OpenAI allows you to connect your GitHub account. So GitHub is where your code lives, and there's this thing, deep research. Deep research, it goes like 10-15 minutes, and it thinks about the problem really deeply. And then O3 is the best model, highly reasoning. And if you get all these 3 in the recipe, you get a really tasty soup which solves your problems. So it's...
You're mentioning Claude Code Max, and you're mentioning O3 deep research. Like, I'm assuming those are all the more expensive plans of all of these AI providers. What does like how much do you spend on AI on an individual basis per month?
Well, before
Is it more or less than a developer cost?
No, it's less. Cloud Code $100 for now. Cursor $20. OpenAI subscription $20.
$20. You have O3 in the $20.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
you have
okay.
O3 in the $20, and even deep research. You can
Oh,
do
yeah.
this trick. Claude. Oh yeah, I have the max. That's V0, V0. Yeah, these. Yeah,
Okay.
more or less $200 per month, and plus the API keys, which kind of like not really because
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you think is there any scenario or problem that is better to tackle with Cursor than Cloud Code, or you always use Cloud Code?
well, if you before I didn't know about the subscription, I would juggle between like, oh, if I use Cloud Code for this task, it will cost me $1. I would rather try out with Cursor first. Let's see if it works. So at this point, if you subscribe to the max and you have internet and you're not, well, if you don't have internet, you're anyway fucked. But yeah, I would all the time recommend Cloud Code only if you run out of requests for the 5 hours, but it's really hard. And then you stand up and go for a walk because you worked so much. So
Five cigarettes, right?
sorry,
A walk and 5 cigarettes.
5 cigarettes at least.
I thought there's another question. I will go to it very quickly. And then very often, software developers will tell me like a big thing that I cannot do and that I should not vibe code is because of security. And what you're building is unsecure and it's not good. What advice do you have there?
Ooh, that's well, I would highly recommend to have a programmer look at it. If it's really something serious, getting there to production, even as a vibe, I'm a programmer, so I don't need that 10% programmer. But if you plan to vibe code something and you don't have a technical background, highly recommend to get a programmer, even while doing it and at the end of it, because I had a story where I vibe coded something and I hired the programmer, hey, fix it. And then 1 month later he quit. So it was not fun for him.
Never look in your lines of code like your product.
I do look because I have a technical background, so I do look what does it do. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. So it's always like whenever it really doesn't work, like if I go one step further and it cannot solve my problem, then I would look deeper in the code, like, hey, what's happening? And then
How do you find a balance? I don't have a background. How do you find a balance of how to look into the actual lines? And maybe ask another tool, like, can you explain what it does here? Maybe you should never do it. I don't know.
I would say if you don't have a technical background, use scripts to check the file complexity, check the length of the file.
Functionality, I guess, also like what it does.
Yeah, yeah.
Test bench or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend testing when vibe coding because it's just too many things to maintain. But yeah, functionality, ask the AI what it does.
No, I mean from the perspective of outside, like what it does. I mean not what goes on in the code, but how it performs. You're doing like test benching to see if it actually does what you expect it to do.
I always test it manually, even though it can be a good practice to write test cases and then satisfy it. But I find that while vibe coding, things change so much, and then maintaining tests. I tried it before, but maintaining tests is quite a big task to do. So personally, I don't, but I would recommend doing it. So
How can you be sure that it actually does what you want in all the different aspects?
well,
You
you
test
open
it.
it and test it.
Yeah, you open it and test it. Click,
Yeah.
see if the click does what you expect the click to do, right?
Yeah.
Human makes mistakes. Sometimes you have to test it.
I want to get back a bit, like we're going very much into the more technical side, but I think there's also people who never went from idea to actually building an app. Maybe I want to ask Dan, because you told us last year that a lot of people were going to lose their jobs. What should those people do that have a bunch of ideas? Like, how should they get started? We've like, I assume you know quite a lot of tools. I already shared my workflow. Like, how would you tell those people to approach things?
You asked me the hardest of questions.
You're a doctor, right?
I want to change my branding to Vibecoder Dan or something. So I think the best starting point is always finding the problem and what could solve it, right? So before you build anything, like how big a problem is this for how many people? This has nothing to do with coding. This has everything to do with business and startups, right? Is how do you find a real problem that enough people experience, that enough people are trying to do something about, that they're willing to pay to solve, right? That has valuable, has immediate value for them. Like you can see that you could create and capture that value. That's where I would start. And for that, you can use similar tools. I talk to O3 all the time, like for research. It's not very good at writing stuff. It's not very good at blogs or whatever. It's insanely good as a research tool. It's insanely good at calling the research tools, like searching the web, then thinking about it and thinking, oh, I need to search again because something is missing here. So it's really good for market research. Gemini is really good as well. All the deep research frameworks, including Perplexity. You can send them on quests of like, find all the companies that do XYZ, find all the problems that people report on the internet about XYZ, right? And you get all these like long documents you can then summarize, which you can then like pass from one LLM to the other, right? And you think with this incredible assistance on what is missing. Then of course you still need to talk to people, you still need to do the legwork. But then once you have that, then you can figure out, is there a software product that would solve it? Is there a different business that is needed and software is a part of it, like connecting buyers to sellers or whatever. So that's where I would start.
Okay. Ben, you got something else to add there?
Yeah, there's also this concept, so I come more from the marketing side, right? And we talk about vibe coding where you're trying to build the best product, the functionality. But at the end of the day, whether it's SEO or influencer marketing, there are ways where you can use AI for that too. So example for you, with the cover letter product, I had Cursor. I said, hey, I want you to translate my landing page into every language on earth, right? And it goes through and it translates. And so now people search AI cover letter in Bulgarian and my product can come up there. So that's just like one example where versus a bigger company, I don't think that they're doing that, right? They're not leveraging AI to build landing pages to optimize for all these different kind of use cases and all of that. And then on the influencer marketing side, right? You can use plugin like make.com or one of these like automation tools with ChatGPT to write personalized messages to every influencer in your space and then send them messages out. So I think like as much as vibe coding is a concept, right? It is also just like across the entire space. And then I know we're really getting focused on the IDE part, but during Nomad Fest, there's like a lot of conversation about like, well, can you really scale as a solopreneur, right? And I mean, maybe Salt, you have the answer to this. I know you're on like the mobile app side, but for me, it's also embracing of like Vercel, right? So a lot of developers I've learned don't know what Vercel is, and Supabase and these newer products, which are kind of were skating along, but then once vibe coding became a thing, it was like, oh wow, you can provision a serverless web app extremely quickly using Vercel. So that's just something else.
Yeah, I love that you bring up this point that it's not just the coding side, but like any type of workflow that someone does on a daily basis, you can basically automate it pretty easily these days by just explaining or figuring out what's the workflow, how can I translate this into a step-by-step process, or let AI do it or build it. But like this could be from content creation, ideation, image generation, emails, like all of these things basically. They don't like you can use vibe coding, or they call this vibe marketing, where you turn a workflow actually into a automated system where you basically say, hey, I've been spending so much manual time here, but I don't have to spend all this time here because all I'm doing is actually clicking and writing something, but the AI can write it better than me. So like vibe coding is one thing, vibe marketing is another thing where you can actually make yourself more productive and actually focus on the things that you want to focus on and that actually move the needle. And if you can see what are the workflows where you're spending and wasting a lot of time, automate them, vibe market a workflow together, and let it do its thing while you focus on things that actually move the needle.
Yeah, and just last thing on this, the image generator for ChatGPT is insane. It's amazing, and you can like go to any landing page of like a 500 person plus company and take like their graphics that took a lot of time for someone to make, right? And you copy that one, put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, in the style of this image, I want you to make my landing page kind of design for based on that. And it will marry things together in ways that you can't even really conceive.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
last one to build on this, and I think there's a lot of product potentials as well. Like if you think about how many things you do on a daily basis, which are routine tasks of click, 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 where actually you don't use much of your brain, all of these tasks could become a product somehow. Like if you can create yourself a workflow and plug that into your life, you can be damn sure that there's other people that could use that too. So if you can identify your own problems and your own workflows and vibe code that into a product, there's your business idea potentially. So that's a way to go as well. And then there might be a bigger business that wants to implement that into their thing, and suddenly you exited the company, right? So it all could happen pretty fast. Ruth, you see you laughing. Is it not that's not how it goes?
I don't think it's that easy.
I mean, do you believe in vibe coding?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't believe him, but I was actually also very curious what the ones with the developer background say. What are still the limitations? Yeah, because I see some. Like for me, image generation with ChatGPT doesn't work. Like for my presentation, I use ideogram, for example, but I think everybody has their tools, right? But when it comes to business ideas, I do a lot of marketing stuff with AI, a lot of texts and so on, but I have to control it and double check all the time.
Yes.
So for me, I think if you have a deeper topic, if you have a mass market topic, I think it's easier because from the well, every AI is just as good as the data it's trained on, right? And because it's trained on the data, well, that is there, like images, stock photos, whatever, sometimes results can be pretty average. So whenever you have a topic that goes pretty deep, or that is maybe a niche topic, and it's like a deep expert, like topic with deep expertise, I would be very careful with that.
Yeah.
If you go for more simple, more mass market, more simple end customer products and stuff, it can be much easier. So I would put it a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. But like, if you scroll on Twitter, they say a vibe code a SaaS product and have 50K MRR every month, right? that's the tweets that you see. So
Can work.
I also don't believe that it's that easy, but I do believe that if you automate your own problems or like you solve your own problems, that you also solve other people's problems, and there is potential a business there. You don't have to look for someone else's problems, just look at your own problems. That's probably the best things to solve. I think I have a whole, oh yes, wait a sec. I have a whole list of more questions, and we didn't even got to half of them, but I think we were not gonna go too much longer in this setting. I wanna go a bit more into the questions, but I also have one more question for the panel and for you all, but first it's your turn.
Yeah, I have a question to the panel. So I run a software company and I have techies who every week tell me, oh, there's this new and I'm doing this now, and it's like the progression is insane. So my question is, should we be scared? Like I imagine in 2 years I'm sitting in the train, bored, and I'll be just like, I want to play a snowboarding game, make it. Yeah. And then it does like everything, and I play a snowboarding game. And what do we do then? Like then we can mow the grass, and what do you guys think about that?
Become a plumber.
Yeah, I mean, I think niching down will help, right? And there are two different types of apps. There's the network effect apps. Those ones are less at risk, but this is like a genuine concern I have a lot of anxiety about this where I'm like, okay, I need to build an app now that is going to get some traction, right? Because I don't think
tomorrow, so you have some money.
yeah, right. But we don't know. Nobody knows where this is like, and also like he said he referred to the plumber, the godfather of AI. Literally said that 2 weeks ago, like be a plumber, and that's pretty scary to hear even him saying that. And I don't know. I share that concern, but at the same time, it's one of those things like okay, take advantage of the moment and try to make the best of the situation. You know.
May I have the micro fork? Yeah. So, as the guy who talks about the end of all jobs and has a selfie with the godfather of AI, I'm going to take the stage here. I agree with you entirely. I don't think it's scary. I think it's just what's going to happen. I think we're just going to stop using quill and parchment, and we're going to have the printing press, right? And from the printing press, we're going to have printers, and from that, who cares? We have screens, right? So we're going to have software on demand, 100%. We already do, actually. You can already go to Claude and say, make me a game, and although it's a shitty game, it's playable in your browser, right? So the beta, the MVP is already there. It's just going to get better and better exponentially, and exponentially fast. Is it a problem, or is it an opportunity? Why do you have people employed? Maybe you don't need them. Maybe you can be one person with a million instances of AI under you with 100,000 robots building for you, right? And I do believe that's the future. I think it's going to be one person AI company, right? That's what I talk about. That's my positive message here. But yeah, having to hire people who are like hard to train and retain and put in teams and motivate, all that stuff, I think that's out. I think we're done. I was just seeing, we're just discussing this this morning, that I just saw a report that shows you the two interesting graphs, right? One of them is how many employees per fulfillment center of Amazon, and the other one is delivery per employee, right? Like how many deliveries they make per employee. So productivity is shooting up while workforce is going down. And that is true, has been true in many other industries over time. You can see it in farming. Right, farming jobs peaked in like what, early 1900s or late 1800s, right? And since then, it's just no people employed in farming, incredible amount of output, right? And it's going to be the same with software and everything else. Software more so because it scales easier, because you don't have the physical resource limit to that degree.
Yep, totally agree. I think whoever went to presentation, you said even way more about this. And yeah, from a personal experience, I have more projects in the graveyard that I should have. So having said that, it's also like, what do you do when you can like have an app just like that, just summon an app? And it's the question of like, what do you do after it? Who are you gonna sell it? So I think it's gonna become a commodity, like you have a piece of orange coming down from the tree, and then the question is, what type of tricks and things you're gonna do to sell it? How you gonna do it? Like, it's not gonna be effort anymore to make a software product. So it's gonna be more of a marketing game, more of a sales game, more how much community you have, how much attention you're gonna collaborate with a YouTuber that has millions of views, and then you sell it together. So it kind of becomes equal with something like a piece of nut, or I don't know. So
but I have my own AI YouTuber in the future, like doing stuff for me.
In the future, yeah. But are you sure it's gonna have viewers?
No,
exactly. Like authenticity is still a thing, right? And distribution is the hardest thing to get. And that's like you said, like the most popular brands are the brands that shut up. For example, Prime. Have you heard of this drink Prime? Like it was a drink brand, and they partnered with two of the biggest YouTubers, and suddenly the whole world knows it and everyone drinks it. They solved the distribution problem. But for all those Vibecoders that don't have an audience or that don't know anyone, they can build the best product or app in the world, but if nobody hears about it, nobody's going to use it. So it's not that if you can build an app, that the thing is done. It actually just starts there. And distribution is the hardest part in this whole journey. So, yeah. And I don't think AI influencers will solve that. There might be certain use cases where AI influencers could make money, and there's these days like live shopping, for example, it's a thing where, yeah, that might be, or like sexy girls, right? That's something that people like as well. But I mean, I don't know. Like I think authenticity will stand out, and real faces will eventually be sought after. Like I prefer to listen to a real face when I spend a little bit of time watching something than knowing that it's an AI talking to me.
I have a thing to add here, which is I had a slide in my presentation on Friday, which is two Chinese influencers who are well known, who do this like shopathon where they sell online. They sold like 7 million worth of goods in 7 hours with AI avatars. It wasn't them; it was their avatars.
It was their avatars.
Yeah. And
I see there, but that's a
but they
use case.
licensed
That's
their
apply-
image in
yeah,
a way, right? I mean,
yeah.
they owned it, but it was their
Oh,
own.
Luca, tell us about your product. Licensing images. What's that?
No, that's my bet on the future of at least AI influencer of real influencers and real models is I'm building a marketplace for you to be able to hire real people, so that if I want to be hired by a fashion brand in Japan, I don't need to catch a flight and put on a suit that they can put on their website to sell. They just pay me for what I look like, and I do believe that humans become famous for what they do in real life, and you become well known and respected for what you do in the real world. And that is something that you own, it's your intellectual property. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom and the godfather of AI and oh my god, but I'm following a bit of a different philosophy, which is optimism. And there's a guy called Rick Rubin, and he kind of rewrote the Taoist philosophy, and he basically replaced the Taoist philosophy with vibe coding and AI. You can read it on The Way of Code. It's a website. So if you're ever feeling a bit stressed out about all of this AI stuff, just read a bit of Rick Rubin. I promise you, you'll calm down a bit. But yeah, I don't know if the future is going to be 100% perfect or 100% horrible. In my knowledge, or at least from my perspective, usually it's somewhere in between. So for some people it will be great, for some others it won't be. Yeah.
I'll just add one thing. Like, software engineers are at a very interesting place because here it is, it was the most high paid job. And I do see there are two different types of software engineers. There are those that are embracing the technology, and then there are those that are they're like, yeah, I still like getting in the code and doing it themselves. And I don't know, it really does seem like the ones that embrace it are the ones that are going to be the most successful out of all of us, potentially, right? Because they understand the real nitty gritty that like Cursor cannot understand, but they also, I mean, they're using cars where everyone else is using horses. Like that's what it seems like to me as an outsider, as like a product person. So.
And the last thing I'd say is, like, today you can build a website on Squarespace, on WordPress, nearly for free, but people still pay thousands of dollars to build a website.
Okay. All right. Are there any more questions? Because that was a good one that sparked some. Yes. All right. Here's the fork.
I'm gonna be the first one using it.
Make it a fucking good question.
I wanted to ask about like integrating design into your workflow, because you talk about like doing everything like with AI, but the products I build is very design driven. So it's very unique with very specific animations and it's very detail oriented. So my question is, how do you deal with such animations and design, like for Figma, for example?
So you have a specific Figma design and you want that Figma design to be implemented.
It's a design system, like atomic design, very thoroughly made. Because what you want, I mean, you want to differentiate yourself, you want your app website to look very unique.
You
can like
put these into V0, right? You can upload Figma designs into Bold or V0 and either brand guidelines or assets that you already have, and then it will take into account. I'm not sure how perfect it is, and you might still want to change that.
If you're just following the actual news coming out, you can start to use Cursor with a ready-made Figma design, and it's gonna make code out of it. And this is every day just getting better and better. So I think whatever we're talking about in a week later, there is a better way to do. So it just need to be updated.
Yeah, personally, I do not have experience with getting Figma design. I've seen that there are some plugins doing it, there are some tools doing it, so I'm pretty sure it's done. How I would do it is two things, like copy paste the design CSS elements, like the color codes and everything, copy paste it into either V0 or cursor, depending where you start the project. And you can also create screenshots. So AI, you can attach image files to the AI, and it will replicate whatever you attach. So it can do it. It's not always the best, but it can do it. So the more guide you give it, and you can export Figma. Yeah. Does anybody have experience with getting Figma stuff to code?
I've tried a few times. It's pretty terrible. So I think that's one task. You just give it to a front-end engineer, and he spends a day on.
Yeah, that's what we were asking. Yeah.
The way it looks in Figma, and then you can take it from there.
I'm looking for that tool that basically will reduce my workload to 5%.
Next week.
And animations as well. I find animations like very time consuming, and I use a bit of AI, but it's not, I mean, from what I've used, it's not very good. Still have to.
Figma has their own V0 type coding. I would imagine that would be the easiest way to get it to code. It doesn't work. Okay. Yeah.
The good thing is that today is the worst that these tools will ever be. So I mean, we can always stay positive. Tomorrow maybe it's better. And there's always new tools coming out, and it's also kind of hard to keep up to date. But if you find the one that helps you, it's awesome, right?
I'm gonna hand this over back to you.
The micro fork.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested because I'm pretty much in my job. I'm a software engineer. I'm Vibecoding every day, and it seems like, yeah, I'm concerned, and as Bansko was very, like, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and so I'm in a similar way looking to think down the product route and so on, and how to basically think in a business mindset as a software engineer, and quickly build stuff. And so yeah, I started Vibecode, like I Vibecode my job, but I started to really want to prototype something and build. So I used one of these platforms. I made the mistake of trying to build something and then add authentication on top and then have different deployment environments, and it was just a mess. And I was stuck in a loop of just like, and I was like, what's all this hype? Like, it's actually not that easy to do it.
Yeah.
So I wonder, is there actually two steps here in the development process of your Vibecoding? There's like actually trying to, validate the idea in like very simply, and then the second step of actually being able to build it from that prototype. I'm wondering what the state of the tools are at the moment. If you don't have a technical background, is it actually possible to Vibecode something that's fully fledged? I'm not sure it is yet.
That's an amazing question, because that's exactly what I've spent the last 5 days on. I'm building myself a platform. It's called vibecode.fun, and I want to build a product hunt for Vibecoders. But I've never written a line of code myself, so I'm figuring it out on the go. And you can go to vibecode.fun/meetup if you want to make an account and you're one of the first users. But to create that and the authentication, all of that, it's been a shit show. And it's been different loops, and I couldn't test and all of these things. So it's a +1 for me. I want to know, like, what's the ideal way of doing this?
I have a few tips. So the scripts to check the health. But I don't know, how many of you did use rules before? Rules. Okay, so there's this trick that you can describe how the AI should behave. So, for example, that if you would create like a template, like this technology stack is using Next.js. I am writing everything, every hard logic in the services. I do not write more than 200 lines of code. I do not do this or that. I do and do not. So you kind of create rules. And it's super powerful. Even in Cursor and in Claude code, you can specify rules, and you can also specify them to trigger when you modify a certain part of the project. So for example, like the API directory. Like if you have a rule for the APIs, it's just a rule to be triggered for the APIs themselves. So this is a super powerful thing. I always have rules that are triggered whenever whenever you need them. Usually when I get into trouble, then I create a rule not to do it again. So
But
I specify.
at what point do you start thinking about authentication, for example? Because like then you suddenly have a local environment and a deployment environment, and they use different keys. And then when I'm locally want to test the UI of, for example, profile settings, I cannot see that because I cannot log in through my authentication. Like you said earlier that you think about design first and implementation later. So, but like at what point do you actually push that to the deployment, and like how do you approach that?
So the less complex is better. So try to get rid of the nice to have features, and authentication is one of the must have if you want to deploy something. Like yes, I would say authentication profiles you have, and try to just get rid of the rest of the complexity. I also build big projects, and while going with a lot of features, your bag becomes heavier. So imagine AI also has a bag. The more features you have, the heavier it is to take care of it and to go forwards. So try to make that bag lightweight and add as small amount of features as possible. Yeah, so the less complex is the better for AI to think, because then, and the more organized. I would say organization. One of the tricks that worked for me before is to break things down into little islands. Like, what do I mean? Like, if you have like a feature that does like a whiteboard, like going Google Maps, or has another feature that you can separate, that you can just domainly separate, like you have mini islands, then you give AI that island and you say like, hey, this island is about this. It's gonna be way easier for the AI to think in smaller microservices things. So instead of like pushing everything into one big soup, try to create like 6-7 different dishes and then eat them separately. So it's something like that.
A question for each of you, because it's such a wide landscape of AI tools. What's some AI tools you've used with some success and then ran to a hard limitation? Like for example, there's no database access.
I mean, it's always changing over time. At the beginning, V0 didn't have database. Then months later, they released Supabase integration. Well, the limitations, like V0, you cannot specify where to change stuff. You just give your wishes, and it just does whatever it thinks to do. And then it's limited, because like you don't have a control over what to be changed. Then, yeah, you go to Cursor, and then you become limited because you've realized that it doesn't always read your files. So, I mean, the no-coder tools, I didn't use that many. So if
Ben,
anybody has...
how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been trying to figure out whether, because I get pushback, oh, you can't get it to production, and I have no doubt that there are bugs and issues with my product. And someone kind of brought up, well, what happens if that happens? And the best is, okay, you have users, and those users email you, and then you fix it, right? So getting users is the best thing from a testing perspective. Now, as a Vibecoder, I would never build a medical app or something like that. Of course, I'm building something with low stakes and all of that. I don't know. I mean, it's only getting better. There's this guy, Andre Karpathy. He was the Tesla AI guy, and he coined the term Vibecoding. And now he just gave this new presentation. I highly recommend it if you want to watch something about like the state of today. It's called Software 3.0. It was like done last week.
We'll add it in the description.
He basically talked about how there's just a new way to code, right? And I know this isn't kind of completely answering, but I want to bring it back to the folks that don't have as much who really are just beginners when it comes to Vibecoders. Like when Salt is talking about making these islands, I'm approaching it from like trying to articulate things extremely clearly in a human English way, right? So I will do this today because I don't have this. I'm going to say, hey, I want to break my code base into islands. And then they're like, okay, what do you mean by that? I think you mean maybe we set up different kind of files for all the things. And I'm like, yeah, I think that is what it is. So like, I'm just going to bring it back for like, maybe not the as technical folks, where like vibe coding is truly about just being very clear with what you want. And then when you see something gets fucked up, then you just got to go back and start again. And yeah.
And discipline, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
you have an idea, you want to do the idea, and the AI can very much distract you with other ideas. But have discipline to follow your idea.
Yeah.
Before I had a question regarding like how you test your code. You said you click it. How do you know when it's actually like mature enough to be released to the real world?
I mean,
Don't over it.
yeah. If I'm testing something and I'm when I'm implementing something, I know what I'm implementing, so I also know how to test it, right? Like if I want this button to go to that place and this button goes to an error page, I know it's not working.
Sometimes it's more complicated. I don't know. It's like
I think what's important was mentioned earlier as well. It's that it's very easy to build your MVP. So build your MVP, launch it as soon as possible, see if anyone's going to pay. If no one's going to pay, don't try to make it perfect, you know. If no one's going to pay for it, just throw it away and start again, you know. If people are paying, then say, okay, maybe I need to spend 3 weeks with a glass of wine vibe coding, you know. Or maybe I need to hire a developer to fix it. But unless someone's going to pay for your MVP, just don't continue, you know. Yes.
Yeah, the earliest possible. So goes back to like Y Combinator YouTube videos and the talks. But I have a personal story where I released a video stabilizer in 4 hours, and it was not working. And I had my dream project, so I was busy with doing my dream project, and users kept writing me emails, and suddenly I have 100 downloads per day, 200 downloads per day, 3,000 downloads per day, and I'm like, oh, actually, I should fix it. So, like, the faster I release, the faster I figured out that there's a pain point to solve. So, if you solve a pain point, you will see it. Users will use it even if it has mistakes. They will tolerate it because it solves a real problem. So I think it's not a question is like when to reach as fast as possible. As fast as it solves you the problem. It doesn't matter if it crashes a few times. It's just ship it to some users and see if the problem is real and you're not over-engineering it in a cave for a few months.
And you know if it deserves your time to actually
exactly.
It's time to fix it.
Exactly.
Can I have just one little addition in defense of tests? I know that a lot has been said about tests being unnecessary, but I actually find that LLMs are extremely good at writing them, and therefore when I use Cursor, I haven't tried Claude Code yet, but when I use Cursor, I just go, here's the feature that we're implementing, here's the sort of mini PRD that you need to go through, write tests at the end, and don't stop until they pass, right? And so I tell it that, and then I go away, right? And then I go to wherever, have a coffee, something, come back, and 5 out of 7 tests are passing, right? And then, okay, I see 2 are not, I'm going to figure out why, right? So it's actually a useful feature, I think.
All right. This is also more like a technical question. So I'm wondering what could be an approach or the limitations when I actually want to bring in my own IP. Just say, for example, I want to create a platform and I have developed my own matching algorithm. Yeah. So how could I actually connect my own IP with, like, when I said, okay, I don't want all these other shit like the user interface and so on. I would like to vibe code that and not do it myself. Or would you still use like other frameworks, building blocks, and connect that? Or is that, what would be the approach?
Sorry, just to clarify, API. Okay, so your own API.
No, my own IP. Like, for example, I develop a specific algorithm, and I want to I want to have that in the back end. Of course, I need APIs to connect it. But how is that possible? How would I approach that?
First, can we clarify what is an IP?
IP, intellectual property.
She created a lot of data, and she wants now to turn that data into a product Or for example, she made an algorithm and she wants to use it into a product.
Exactly.
And are you afraid to feed it to the LLMs because you think somebody will steal it?
No, I'm just wondering what would be the approach, you know? Because like I come from full on programming, and then there were like some helpers, like, okay, I could define a function and say what are the arguments, and then it would write the function for me. So okay, now we are at the point where I can say I want to build this and that website with this and that functions. But what if I still when I still have like a strong own IP, like an algorithm or whatever, and I want to integrate it, you know?
So your IP is an algorithm. It's not like a bunch
For
of
example.
data. Okay. And you cannot copy and paste that code into the other code?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like, how
Oh
would
yeah,
that,
you can edit these files. You don't have to
I
not
would
edit them.
basically, would I pseudocode it and give it to the AI and say that's how it works, or?
You can say these are the inputs to this function, this is the function, these are the outputs, right? And then you can substitute the inside of the function with whatever you want.
I would actually explain the algorithm how it works to the AI.
You could just say, here's a black box,
Yeah.
right? You will feed this data into the black box, you will get this number out, whatever it is, right? And then you control what's in that black box entirely. And you can do that either inside the files in your code, or you can do an API thing, as you were saying. You can have a backend REST, API endpoint where, the data comes in and the data comes out as you prefer.
Thanks.
And also, this is like the basics of the islands architecture. So what you say is that you have your IP, you have that's concrete, that's static, that's stable, that doesn't change. So it needs to expose how it works, like a remote control. Like you have a black box inside, you have the buttons, but you don't know what type of black magic things are going inside the remote control. So it's the same. Like you need to describe how it works, and then the AI will understand. But describing it in the more detail, the better. And yeah, definitely possible.
Okay. So this is very personal. I have a background in sales, and I have been starting to become, like backend developer with Java for the last year. And then I had like a crisis. I was like, oh my God, with all this AI
Java
thing.
does that to people, yes.
Like, what do I have to do? Like software development, AI, software development with AI, because I don't want to lose all the time, that I spend doing this. So maybe any tip, like what can I do to break into tech, but without wasting the time? Something like that.
I think developers have an advantage with vibe coding, like for sure, because you're learning all of the right keywords, how it works, the structure, and I feel like I'm only a good vibe coder because I spent 5 years working with tech teams, and the more I vibe code, the more I feel I'm learning about actual code. So I don't think like actually studying software is a bad thing at all. But I'd say maybe it's some assignments might be easier now as well.
What's your goal? You want to get a job as a software developer?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, you can better be. We were just talking about not.
Yes, I know it's. That's the thing. That's why I had this crisis. I was like, so can I use these skills that I learned to maybe get another job in tech, because maybe now is not the moment to be a software developer. Yeah, I know.
You have a background in sales?
Yes.
Trust me, the hardest thing for any startup is being able to sell. You can be the best developer in the world, but sales is the hardest skill to master. Every startup, I advise a couple of startups, every startup that I know that's super successful are usually the ones that the founders have a sales and marketing background. Not always, but often, just because they're so bold and so fearless in terms of how they go and sell their product. And okay, sometimes they get called out because they're bullshitters, but generally speaking, if you'll find 10 developers that don't know how to sell, and the skill to be able to sell is way more finite and way more scarce than being able to vibe code.
I would say you need both.
Yeah,
in my
well, exactly,
experience,
that's the dream team,
experience, you need like a very diverse team to be successful. But yeah, sales is a lot of times it's underestimated. And I think your strengths could actually be to leverage that you basically now know both words, you know, and that you can kind of connect them. I think that can be a great strength.
Exactly, yeah. A salesperson that truly understands the product will shine so much higher. Me coming from the buy side, I find it very easy to spot a salesperson that's bullshitting you if they don't know about the product. So if you understand the product and the use case and the ROI, and you can articulate that as a salesperson, I would just concentrate. Yeah, I mean, yes, make sure that you're that you're knowledgeable enough on the tech side to be able to articulate that to a potential prospect or customer, but I would leverage your sales skills and work with one of these guys to sell their product. So I can guarantee you know more about that side than any of them do.
Because a lot of technical teams have problems to find the right salesperson because they don't really understand what they're actually selling, and then they're bullshitting, and that's the problem. And then a lot of customers see that, and then they're not successful. So for startups, it's like they're missing salespeople, but also because they're not finding they have a hard time finding good ones that can actually sell the stuff, because a lot of salespeople don't understand what is actually built in the company they're working for. So use that.
Oh, that's great.
Completely agreed, 100%, everything that was said. And I want to add the other side of this, which is yes, go towards sale and go away from software engineering is my side. Data from the US, recent grads in software engineering in the United States of America have an unemployment rate of 7.5%, which is double that of arts majors, which has never happened in history. Nobody's hiring juniors across the board, because why would you? Because Claude is a much better programmer than any junior that you will find, who will just take your time to be trained and blah, blah. Before, people wanted to invest in people because in the future they would hire you and, you know, like you understand the ropes and all of that, and they see the fit, etc. Now they're already expecting not to hire and to just fire in the future anyway, so that's just the expectation. So they're not hiring juniors across the board. So software engineer will not be a job. Forget about that as a job. It's over, it's out. Don't go for the past. Don't start burning oil. Think of solar panels and robots.
I don't think it's all that crazy. I don't. Because again, I still think, if I was a trained software developer today, I'd be selling myself as an expert to help people who are vibe coding, you know. So, and I can vibe code, but I still need to hire people to fix my shit. So, I get it. It's true, but maybe going for employment with a big tech firm is not a good direction. Understanding how software works, understanding how it works on a deeper level for your own knowledge, for your own power, I think is still valid. But looking for that like 100K per year job with Meta, I don't think. I think there I would agree. Is going away.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well. Like if if you basically understand the basics, and for me it took one YouTube video, and Joelle is watching the same YouTube video, and I got it recommended from Ben to understand Cursor and what's the workflows and how are you gonna be productive and how you can make your own life more productive. Like just this one tool can unlock so many different things. It can be software developer, but it can also be your marketing assistant and your sales assistant once you know how the thing works. And you don't need to learn this language and that language and this language, because the AI will know that. All you gotta know is how to instruct it to help you become 10x more productive.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Well, lady in the red first.
So you've been talking a lot about Cursor. What is your opinion about Lovable?
Personally, I would use a lovable type of tool to go for to get to that through that ideation phase. So I have the idea of what I want to build. I then prompt the AI to create a prompt to then feed into Lovable to see how it's going to look like. And once I like how it looks like, then I export it or download it, and then I start using something like Cursor for the backend, which is the harder part. So I feel like Lovable is a great way to skip needing a designer and a quick front-end developer. But after that, you still need the other tools to really get to a fully functional app.
Okay, so it's a step in the workflow essentially.
Yeah, and like a good analogy to this, I think, is imagine an application on your phone versus going to the website of that application, right? The power of like the app is like, I don't know, the gestures and everything, it just works so much better, and that's what Cursor is. It's an application. Maybe down the line, Lovable will have an application and Bolt and these other ones, but for now, like Cursor really gets to the root of it, and it can give you more access and more power.
Depends what you want to build.
Yeah.
Like if you want to build a super easy, like
A website, like a website for a business with a blog, you can do that, right? You can totally do that. When I'm talking about my things, I'm more think about, okay, I want to build a bigger platform with user accounts and all of that stuff. But if it's very easy interface or a website for a business, use Lovable. It's perfect.
Yeah, my project is more with sensitive data and in companies and white labeled, so the protection of that data is really important. Yeah.
Then I would use Lovable for UI, but probably not much more.
Okay, thank you.
What's your, maybe you, since you're the engineer, your opinion about Copilot? Do you use Copilot?
I used Copilot ever since Cursor came out, and I mean it was always the who wins the game, the first one. So Cursor came out with agents, Copilot didn't have agents. I was jumping on the train wagon from one train to the other. So now I hear that they have it, but I didn't revisit it. Same like my ex, I didn't revisit my exes. so so yeah, it's always like who comes first, and then now Claude Code became the one who reads the files. So I jumped to the Claude Code wagon, you know. So it's always like whichever comes first and does the best. But then you always need to evaluate which one does better at a certain point. So you might go back to your ex.
So when was the last time you used Copilot? When was the last time you visited your ex?
This one never. Copilot is still there waiting for me, but maybe one day.
So a note on his ex. Microsoft did a boo-boo with the branding in that Copilot was one thing before and now it's a different thing, but they didn't tell you that, and there's no different naming. It's just Copilot used to be this autocomplete that was very smart, that was using your whole code base to autocomplete your next thing. And for me, it was magic. It was like reading my mind. This is now Cursor tab, which is even more magical. So when you're like in a file and you write a thing, oh, but I need to update this other file. You switch the tab and immediately the code appears for you to just hit tab and it autocompletes, right?
That's not Vibecoding anymore.
That's coding. So that used to be Copilot, the GitHub Copilot. And now there's that, but now they have an actual web interface that is just lovable, like, and it's using like which GPT model behind the scenes, I don't know, but it's equivalent to something like Claude. So.
I still use it.
Yeah, I think it's still good. I mean, I hear that they have agents now, like they matured up, like they grew up to the competition. So I think, yeah, it always depends, like whichever weapon you choose. They are more or less the same. Some of the benchmarks are higher on one or the other, but whichever you feel comfortable. And I think
my
it's
first
also
choice, and now it's hard to change. I get used to something, and then I get lazy to try something else.
I would recommend you to try different
I
things.
tried Cursor, but we're like, and then I stuck to Copilot. But I don't create like a lot of like new apps. I just like maintaining code, so it's different use case, I think.
Yeah, I would still, out of curiosity, recommend just to try out. I mean, it's really hard when every week there's something new coming out. So even this week, Gemini, CLI, and like, it's just crazy to keep up and to always jump on the new one. Like you end up every weekend to spend on trying a new tool because it just came out. It's supposed to be the best thing now. So yeah, I mean, I love Copilot. I used it for more than a year back in the days, and yeah, I still remember.
Rest in peace.
Good old times.
Last question. Anyone? I saw one more hand somewhere here. Yes. There's no one else? Then I'll take it. We got the fork.
Thank you.
Let's call this the forking podcast.
Right. So you talked a lot about options that we have, things that we could do, right? But constraints are good because they tell me what to do. So you said I need $200. I have $200. So obviously, I would be stupid to not learn this like right now. So here's my question, and I hope it's interesting because I thought of a use case that I have. So I made a card game, right? So I have a Canva with cards, and I have an actual humanly understandable instructions of how to play the card game. Now I want an online version. Can you give me like the dummy 5-year-old steps of I open my laptop and I click on? What do I do next?
Open a beer.
Can I do it in 1 month? Can I do it for $200?
Is it simple, like a normal card game?
Yeah, ish. You have rules and you put cards down and you pick cards up and you...
I mean, if it's super simple, there like v0.dev immediately could already tackle it. Gemini has also built-in preview. So if you open gemini.google.com, I think like that, so you can prompt it and you will select the canvas option. And that means that it will create an HTML version of it, and it will also show you the results. So you can immediately start playing. Recently, Claude also released artifacts, which lets you upload your, use your tool, your web game, and you can also share it with others. So it became like the Claude App Store. So there you have literally 3 options to go. So pick the one that you want. After the talk, we can make the card game.
Okay, yeah, you pick one for me because I want to know. I want constraints.
All right, let's do it. Let's pick the V0.
Okay.
That's what I would go with. You plan before. You go to another AI, O3, good planner. You input the rules. You ask it to create you prompts for V0 to be input, like 3, 4, because it's a simple game. And then you copy paste these prompts to V0 and you play the game. And you have a publish button on V0 and you can immediately release it to the web. And you have a link, ABC whatever .vercel.app, and that you can already send it to your friends and play and have a happy evening.
One thing to add to that, I presume that in Canva you drew some things on those cards, right? There's some images.
Yeah.
So using external assets is actually a bit of a pain in the ass with all of these systems. You can't just like upload files. They have no folder in which you can drop anything. So you'll have to link them to somewhere that on the web that they're findable on an HTTPS URL. So you would have to do the hosting yourself of those images and then tell the whatever you're using, V0 for example, tell it, card 1, here's the image, card 2, here's the image, like a JSON file or something, just telling it these are the links from where to load the images. If you want to immediately see it, preview and play. Detail.
They do that for you.
Oh, okay, never mind, ignore me.
One other thing, just like...
That's so crazy.
It's like every time there's like, no, you can't.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, the person that got me started, this guy on YouTube named Riley Brown, I've recommended him to a bunch of people. So if you're like literally turning the computer on and you're trying to figure out Riley Brown, BROWN, he's like comes at it from I have no idea what lines of code are, and let me try to figure out how to build web apps. And he basically built them as I was building them, and I got to see that progression happen with him. So that worked for me. His videos are like 4 months old, so to their point, maybe it's outdated, and maybe we need a new Riley Brown. But like as of 4 months ago, he was the go-to guy on Twitter where everyone was like, okay, if you want to vibe code and you don't know how to code, like you watched his videos.
I'm stupid. He looks stupid too. He can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was it. I think that was quite a lot of value. I hope everyone got a lot of value out of this as well. I'm down to do this more often because there was a lot of people, so we definitely can. As I already mentioned, I'm building a platform for Vibecoders. It's called vibecode.fun. If you go there now, vibecode.fun/meetup, and you can create an account, you're one of the 10 first users, so that's super special. It's not on point yet, I'm vibe coding it, but if you want to follow the journey, I'm happy to keep you up to date, and I'll send all the users an email every time I send an update. And whenever you can upload your vibe-coded apps later on, vibecode.fun is going to be a place where vibe coders can create a profile and then list the apps that they built, so they hopefully find some users. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you to the panel.
And then we can find the security vulnerability apps. Because
Exactly.
uncoded apps sometimes tend to have security issues.
I had a whole section of security and AI slop in my questions, but the conversations that kept going and sunset already happened. So I'm like, we'll keep that one for next time.
Maybe next time also maybe look at B2B versus B2C, because that talking
Yeah.
about security, that's a big one.
Indeed.
Like,
The strategy is different as well.
yeah, I mean, Vibecode, something like your product, then it's obviously very much B2C. The requirements of that in terms of security is very different to something that I would sell, you know, as an app to businesses, for example. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, Carlos.
I don't have one with me actually.
The one that he's gonna help you create.
Oh yeah,
He's just gonna.
10 minutes.
That's actually a coming soon page.
You see?
That's a coming soon page on vibecode.fun.
If that works in like 10 minutes, I'll be a plumber.